Hello. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Railroader. Yes, I am finally playing this game. I picked it up pretty much on the premiere date on Steam. The game has been released in early access just yesterday on 7th December 2023. And I have to say, it's very addictive game. It is a really nice and addictive train game. And I'm trying to avoid calling this train simulator because, as you will soon find out, the game takes a bit light approach to an actual driving simulation. How I would describe Railroader is more of a management model railroad game, probably. At least at this moment, it feels like it's more about management with some hands-on experience in driving, because obviously, especially at the beginning of the game, you as a player will have to take direct control of one of your trains and do stuff on your railways. However, later on you will try to delegate those tasks to AI or other players, and that's how you build your company. And obviously I'm talking about company mode. I'm not talking about sandbox where you just play with trains and literally the game turns into like a perhaps more engaging and slightly better version of trains. I think that's how it works. Anyway, the game takes a lot from titles like Run 8. There are some UI elements that will work in a kind of similar way. Some of the menus were definitely inspired by Run 8, which has pretty much similar feel to it. Although Run 8 is an actual simulator and the game has a very high simulation level, perhaps slightly lower graphics level. And yeah, there are some similarities, but definitely Railroader took inspiration from several different titles, and you will find things in the game that will kind of remind you of those different titles. Does it make Railroader worse game? No, not by any means. It is a fantastic product. So far, I've been having a blast, and on top of that, the game is really cheap. So in my opinion, even before we begin, I strongly recommend picking up a Railroader because the game is just fantastic, without any doubt. Anyway, so it's time to begin my adventure, isn't it? I would lie if I would say that I haven't tried the product before. Since I bought it, I played a little bit on a different save than we will see today. So I had some first experiences with the game. And the game is fantastic. There are some simplicities. Yes, I would call it simplicities. Especially when it comes to driving physics and driving difficulty or control over the locomotive. You will see that controls are very simplified. But nevertheless, the game really feels great. Anyway, so let's hop into the single player. I'm currently in main menu. As you can hear, there is no background music, and the game doesn't have any music, literally. Is it bad? Not really. There's literally no music to mute. I would have muted it as a content creator. because then I don't have to be afraid about publishing the video and getting copyright strikes from YouTube without ability to really challenge that, because YouTube is not the best place to actually challenge such things. It's really biased towards like fighting against their own creators. But anyway, let's not talk about that. Let's focus on Railroader. So we can play in single player or in multiplayer. I will be touching on multiplayer on next Saturday, which is 16th of December, when I will be holding community live stream at 7 p.m. UK time. So if you want to join that, feel free to join my Discord server, and I will put up an announcement there. Right, anyway, today we will focus on single player. So let's hop into single player. As you can see, I have my first save game that I created at 1 a.m., which is very, very late. Anyway, I really enjoyed the game. But today we will start a new game. So you will have that full new player experience, at least somehow as far as editing of this video goes. What you can do when you start a new game. First of all, you have to name your railroad. If you are too terrible to come up with the name, the developers made a big quality of life feature, and that is randomize my railroad name. So if you can't figure out how should I call my railroad, just press random, and it will generate railroad name and reporting mark, which is pretty much an acronym for your railroad. So obviously I got my ARC, which will be Admiral's Rail Company. We will be playing in company mode, which means that we will have to build our wealth, build our rolling stock, build our relationship with customers to gain access to better contracts, and populate our railway from the bottom to the top. In a sandbox mode, you pretty much have access to everything from the get-go, and you don't really have any challenges. You don't need to worry about making money because everything is pretty much free. And of course, you need to name your save. There is no multiple save games for each walkthrough, so pretty much you are naming this save game. So I will call it ARC2 because I already got ARC1 for my private testing. Right. We can select a map, but obviously that is a feature for the future. So if developers will ever make another map, which they still haven't finished the first one, so I doubt they will release another one. But if there will be more maps in the future, they will probably be listed under this menu. Eventually, if the game will have any modding community, and if people will be able to create their own maps, hopefully those will start popping up in here. So who knows, in a few years that might be a very, very long list. And that's pretty much it. We start the game and the game will load. And I have to admit that it loads pretty quick. The loading screen vanished pretty much instantly, but as you can see, the game is already loaded. I haven't even finished a sentence properly. So we start at 9 a.m. Can we actually bring today's date? No. There is a guide that we can open, and we gain access to many different things in relation to the game, including multiplayer. So if you need some help related to multiplayer, that's where you will find it. It's the first icon next to the clock. Then there is our profile and preferences, so we can customize our character. set up our graphics, sounds, set up our input, and I don't know, do some usage data and features. Right, switch list. I haven't really tried this many. It's a bit of a mystery to me. I'll figure out that later. Obviously, there's your company window where you can see railroad, location, milestones. I don't even know what that is. Finance. We can take a loan. We can repay loans. We can see our equipment, and that is the equipment that belongs to our company. Is it? Yeah, I think that's the stuff. We can obviously see the list of our employees, and since I am the only employee of my own company, so I'm self-employed. Crews, we can technically configure a train crew. Oh, okay. We will look into that menu later. And obviously, settings, current time, we can set time of day. We can wait for 1 hour. We can sleep. We can set up time multiplier, which is currently set to 2 to 1. We can set up at what time interchange is served. Okay, we will get to that later because we still don't know the details. But I think interchange should be served at 4 a.m., which will be good. Multiplayer, access control, we can obviously set up a roles for multiplayer because you can use the same save game in a multiplayer game. So the save game we just created, I could literally load it into multiplayer and allow you guys to play on my single player save game, and it will work. We can obviously limit the number of passengers. We can set the role of a newly connected player. We can set the server password, and and we can log the rejected connections for like I don't know. Probably it's mostly for developers. It doesn't really help me as a host. Anyway, that's enough when it comes to company window. We also have console where we can see the logs of all the events. So currently we received initial payment of $5,000, which will be very, very useful. And obviously the tutorial that will guide us through the first steps of the game. So, is Twitter after the flood? So that's when we begin. So there's the history of this area is that there's been a flooding, at least in the game. And obviously we took over the railway for some reasons. Everything is described on this screen. I'm not going to be digging into that because it's not the most important thing. We are not doing any sort of story campaign in here. But to give you some background, yes, there's been recent flood. Another railway decided that they don't want to invest in this area, and you took over. And you are doing business. And that's what we are planning to do. We will be doing business. Right, job briefing. Today's task is to get familiar with the engine and take on coal and water. Fantastic. That will be a very easy task. Rescue and the derailed locomotive. Yes, we got this one down here. It's derailed. We will have to rescue it. Order more coal and take the hopper to the interchange. Yes, we will sort that out. Run a passenger train to Whittier and Ella west of here. Fantastic. We will sort it out. Set up your first freight contracts with customers. Okay, that will be done. Hopefully that will be good enough for today's video. Well, I think that will be more than good enough for today's video. Right, let's start by getting familiar with how to look and move around in the world. So basically that tutorial will guide you step by step on how you can look around. And basically what you do, you press right mouse button, you hold it, and you move your mouse, and then you can look around. That's basically how you look around. Anyway, let's get to the proper menu. We can choose our perspective. So we got first player perspective that we are in right now. I'm pretty much standing here as my own character. And we can have overhead view. And we can then see our own character from the outside. It's not perfect. And the camera is focused on his legs, so it's really hard to find a good and proper perspective. But yeah, we can have like a third player view. It's also acting as a free camera, so using WASD will allow you to fly around, and you can pretty much do a lot of things. You can zoom in and zoom out using your mouse wheel. And yeah, controls are very easy to learn. Honestly, it didn't took me long to get familiar with it. Pretty much without even reading the tutorial, I was able to move the camera around. Obviously, it takes a while to get used to different aspects of controls in the game, but for the beginning, it is really, really nice and intuitive. Right, the selected camera moves with WASD. Hold right mouse button to rotate and look around. Okay, and mouse wheel to change your zoom distance. Okay, everything is described. In first person, middle mouse reset zoom. Spacebar jumps. Oh, okay, that's good to know. Try switching between the cameras and adjust your point of view. Hold down shift to run. It works in both cameras, and control to move the overhead camera even faster. So you can pretty much fly at super speed. Okay. That really helps when you need to move the camera around really quickly. Remember, the cameras are completely independent. You can use this to your advantage, and we will. Obviously, since the game is slightly more about management and less about simulation, we will be using external camera quite a lot. Right. Climb aboard. Let's board the engine, which is just outside the engine shed. Find the ladder between the engine and tender. Move forward with W while facing the ladder to climb into the cab. At the top of the ladder, find the engineer's seat in the cab. It's on the right side of the engine. Simply walk into the seat to sit. Have a seat. Okay, so let's move to the first person perspective. Let's sprint to our engine, which is this one, number 3, Admiral's Rail Company. It doesn't have its own name, so the company names are usually printed on the tender. The wagons will get acronyms, and the locomotives will just get the numbers. So you can walk in. We got some coal. Let's see. Handbrake is released. Okay, the handbrake is a really tiny one. Okay. So in order to sit down, you just walk onto the seat, and you can visually see that our character is actually sitting on the chair. We can open the window, we can close it, and we can lean out. Obviously, first try to open the window. It actually helps. Right. Click on the engineer's window, blah, blah, blah. Okay, everything is described on this menu. Engine controls. And when it comes to engine controls, they are very, very simplified. So you don't really fire your engine. You don't need to do that. It's constantly fired. The glass obviously doesn't show you the water level in the boiler. It shows you the general water level in the locomotive. That includes the tender. So here's where very huge simplification comes into play. You can obviously hear the compressor and other elements. So there is some sort of attempt to make it a simulation, but the game still requires a lot of work in that regards. So hopefully in the future we will see a little bit more simulation elements, and the game will get better and better and better and better at it. But at this moment, Many things are very, very simplified. So if you are hardcore simulation fan and you are buying this game for the sheer simulation level, go to a different title. Honestly, it's not title that you will enjoy if you look only at those aspects. If you look at the gameplay, that's a different story. Right. Anyway, so we can operate the brakes. We got train brake, independent brake. We got reverser or Johnson bar. We can put it 100% forward, 100% reverse, and obviously adjust it in 10% increments, which is precise enough for our goals. When you are in the cab, you can also open and close cylinder cocks, which I couldn't find the control for in external camera. There is probably a button setting for that, but I just couldn't find it. So currently this setting, I find it's available only in the cabin. And obviously this is our throttle. And that's pretty much it. We can't operate any of the valves, levers. We can't fire the engine manually. Everything happens automatically. Right, so anyway, independent and train brake. Obviously the game will explain you that. Throttle and reverser, selecting your engine. And here's where somewhat management part comes in. So if you are in the external camera, you can obviously press and hold control and click on the engine. You will then bring somewhat of a menu or a screen of that engine or particular car, because you can click on the car and pretty much it has its own separate statistics. You can bleed the brakes, you can apply hand brake, you can select that specific car, or you can follow it, and then the camera will just focus on that specific engine or car. So we will now focus on our locomotive. So this is 41TG16 Mogul. The condition is listed on the screen, which is 100%, so we don't need to repair. Brake line is at 90. Cylinder at 0. Handbrake is released. We can also apply it if we want to. We can cut out the brakes if we are running multiple engine, and we can also select multiple units, which will prepare this engine for multiple unit operation. I haven't tried that yet, but in the future we will experiment with that as well. Equipment, we can set the repair destination. So for example, this locomotive will be repaired at East Wheater Repair Track, and then it will set its destination. We can also designate where do we want to put it to sell it. And then we can just park it there, and next time the interchange will be serviced, our locomotive will be sold. The same goes to cargo and other stuff. If we designate it to be there for any reason, it will be serviced at servicing hour. Right, so first thing first, we selected the engine. Did we? Yes, we selected the engine. Now we have access to UI controls. And UI controls are very, very simple and pretty much similar to what you will see in Railroads Online, for example. So you got your throttle control, reverser, independent brake, and the numbers resemble to PSI, or pressure in the cylinder. Is it? Yeah. In that case, it is a pressure of the independent brake. So in case of independent brake, you operate cylinders or brake cylinders directly, but only in the locomotive. So you apply pressure. When it comes to train brake, in that case we got airline. So you are actually decreasing the pressure in the airline that causes the brake cylinder pressure to increase. But okay, I'm not going to explain here how air brakes work, but basically that's how it works. So for train brake, you reduce the pressure in the brake line or main line. Is it called train brake? Yeah. Basically, yeah, you reduce the pressure in the main pressure line. That will cause all the brake cylinders that are connected to that system to increase the pressure and basically apply the brakes. Or when you increase the pressure in the main line or in the brake line, it will decrease the pressure in brake cylinders. So yeah, it works like a lever. There is also another type of brakes that work in a kind of similar fashion, but the opposite way. And that is vacuum brakes, where you have depressurized brake line because you create a constant vacuum in that system. And then when you put any pressure into that system, it also pushes the brake pads against the wheels. But that is a little bit different system, and obviously it's not used in the game at the moment, at least. Right, anyway, so that is the controls of the locomotive. Brake display, yes, those two dots below ARC3, which we can actually, okay, the controls can be realistic or simplified. It doesn't really make sense. Okay, let's keep it realistic. Anyway, those two dots represent each car of your consist. So there's locomotive and a first car. Or locomotive and a first car, I can't remember. Basically, the colors of these dots will represent whether the brakes are applied or released. So if we will apply the handbrake, it will now paint one of the dots purple, because locomotive has now applied handbrake. If we release the handbrake, it will go back to white. If we will apply the brakes if we will apply a train brake, both locomotive and the first car will change colors. If we will release the brakes, they will come back to white. Same goes to independent brake. Obviously, a locomotive and a tender are connected, so independent brake applies to both of them. If we will be pulling any cars, then obviously there will be more dots. And if we connect the airline correctly, then applying the brakes will show us the status of the brakes in different cars. Right. So when that's explained, selected engine controls. Obviously, we can have some keyboard shortcuts. B for bell, H or Shift H for automatic whistle, or you can hold V and move the mouse up and down to basically adjust the whistle a little bit more precisely, which this... Oh, okay, it actually explains it. You can quill the whistle, yeah. And I personally find quilling the whistle a far better option than using H or Shift H. But it's just me. Different players will find different controls for themselves. J will cycle headlight settings, so we can put on dimmed light, full beams, rear headlights, which we don't actually have, so there is nothing that turns on. Rear headlights are dimmed. Again, there is nothing that we can turn on. Headlights are off, and again, front headlights, so it just cycles through. Okay, that's pretty much it. We can select 0 to track my engine, so the camera will constantly follow behind the engine. If we will press WASD, we will disconnect the camera from the engine, and we can just try and maneuver it using the controls, which we can totally do. So by sticking the camera or gluing the camera to the engine, the camera will just fly behind it. Right, and let's release the brakes. Setting switches, it's very simple. Just hover the mouse over the switch and obviously click on it, and the switch will change. You obviously want to try and line up the switches based on your route. If you are trying to click on a switch that is too far away, it won't highlight, so you need to move your camera a little bit closer so that the switch will show a tooltip. Then when you press on it, it will change the switch. Right, it's pretty simple enough. We are pretty much ready. Let's get this engine moving. Let's glue the camera to the engine. And let's ring the bell, yes. Okay, try and control your speed so that we can slowly stop right next to this water tower. We can open the hatch. We can actually reverse it a touch. Yeah, that will do. Now when we click on the water tower, it will automatically fill our engine. As you can see, I missed this spot a little bit. But again, it works on a placeholder, so as long as your car is more or less within the range, it will start filling up. You can also disable the bell, because it's very loud. And the water tower will fill up your engine all the way until it's full. Or until water tower, or coal tower runs out of resources, which is, well, whichever is the first. In case of water, I believe it fills it up completely, because water never runs out. Yeah. So we got 3,998 gallons of water. That is maximum capacity of this locomotive. We can close the hatch. Okay. We can stow the water column. Put on forward, release the brakes, and we can pull forward a little bit, just to place our tender under the chute. Let's just go a touch forward, just to make sure that we are throwing the coal into the tender, not into the cabin. Let's keep on independent brake, and again, if we click on the chute while our tender is under it, it will lower itself and start distributing coal as far as we can distribute it. There we go. That's all the coal we could get. We can raise the chute, and our locomotive is now ready. Water hatch, fuel water, fuel coal, the map. Okay. So, and now the game is explaining us how to use the map. So we can press M to bring out the map. Mouse wheel will zoom it out or zoom it in. Obviously, left mouse button, if you press it and hold, and start moving your mouse, you can move the camera around, so you can pretty much look at different parts of the map. And the map is huge. Look at this. Yeah, we can go all the way to Andrews if we will ever unlock that route. Okay, that is really good, really good. I think we can actually go to Silva and stuff like that, but I wonder how do you actually unlock this bit of a track? Yeah, I think you can do that because there's that interchange which is far away. Interesting, interesting. We'll find out. I know that we can unlock this part by repairing the bridge, which is located here between this tiny gap. So there will be a mission to actually fix that bridge. But I wasn't aware that we can actually go in this direction and we can discover all that. And there's still few miles of tracks. There's also Connelly. Connelly is pretty much like a logging yard, but we will look into that later. Right, so that's pretty much the map. You can also teleport to different places. Oh yeah, you can press Control and T, and you can, let's say, teleport to Ila. And as you can see, the game will just teleport us. Hang on, where we are. There we go. That's Ila Station. So it is a very, very convenient and quick way to move around the map. Obviously, we can always press 0 and it will teleport us to selected engine, which is another way to quickly teleport around the map, or at least teleport our camera, because character doesn't really teleport. Right. When this is done, we filled our locomotive. Now we need to save this. Yeah, this one, because it's broken. It's broken. Right. So navigating to the wreck, find the derailed engine. Okay. So pretty much we need to go onto this bit. So let's get on moving. Beautiful. So, while we are moving, let's focus on the sounds. So, chuffs are somewhat synchronized to a tiny degree. Well, to a certain degree. It's just a placeholder, and I wouldn't be trying to make it up as a guide to anything in the game. So if you will try to drive based on chuffing sounds and etc., don't try and do that because it just won't work. Only thing you are looking for is your speed and track speed limit, literally. On top of that, obviously, you need to check whether the switches are set correctly, because going at speed through a switch might cause a derailment, and that may be expensive to fix. And it also takes time, but we will cover that in a minute. Right, let's reverse, let's release the brakes. Okay, 3 blasts of whistle, and we are moving towards that derailed engine. Right, so when it comes to sounds as well, you could hear a very, very supple wheel scratch, or yeah, scratches when the locomotive was turning or going over a bend, which is a nice touch. You can hear that yeah, wheels are actually scratching on the sides of the rail, especially in early ages of railways where wheels weren't designed as precisely, or they weren't manufactured as precisely as you could do it right now to eliminate this effect. Okay, so this is the engine, and as you can see, it's not quite on the rails. So let's have a look at the guide. Re-railing, Shift and R. However, in order to use it, you need to be standing as your character. You can't be flying in external camera. This doesn't work. If you will fly with external camera, press Shift R, you will get a pop-up only available in first person. So yeah, that's how the game locks it. You failed, you have to be there in person. Right. So, hover your mouse over a specific engine that you want to re-rail. Press Shift and R. Press it a few times to actually properly re-rail a car. And it should actually show in the logs. Yes, it is showing in the logs that I re-railed one car. But that's just the locomotive, and there is also a tender. Those are two separate cars. And obviously you need to press Shift R twice or more to properly re-rail a train. Right, let's double check. Angle cock at the back is closed. Let's apply the handbrake. You don't have to couple tender to the locomotive. It happens automatically. Or at least I never had to do that. Even though locomotive is technically considered two cars, it is still like a single unit, if you look at it that way. Okay, so now this is secured with a handbrake, and the locomotive is re-railed. And we can get back to our locomotive, the one that actually works. We can go to external camera. We can focus the camera on the engine that we are actually controlling. Okay, we got reverser set to reverse. Independent brake released. 3 blasts of horn. And we can now couple the trains. You are trying to avoid exceeding 5 miles an hour while trying to couple. I think going 2.2 should be more than enough. There we go. That's nice and soft dunk. Okay, we can get up. And now, tutorial doesn't tell you that, but you can technically connect the air hose and run the air brakes through the locomotive. But since this is very light load, I will just release the handbrake. And I think our locomotive should be more than enough to handle the task. So let's sit down in our chair. Let's focus external camera. Reverser forwards. And now we need to take it to this shed. So let's get this bad boy moving. Also, if you have airlines disconnected, you get this tiny icon saying that the airlines are disconnected between specific cars. Which is also helping you identify the problems when you will be running heavy freight train. and it will struggle to stop. Although at this point it is probably too late. There we go. We are going slightly uphill, and we can literally feel how our locomotive is struggling to pull another engine. Okay, we can use independent brake. We don't really need to use train brake because it has literally the same effect at the moment. Okay, so that's one switch. I would also like to place this locomotive on this track. Okay, so the switches are set. We can now set the reverser, release the brakes. 3 blasts of horn or whistle, and off we go. Okay, so now we need to disconnect the coupler, and because we never connected the air lines, let's just inspect. Angle cocks are both closed. We don't physically disconnect the air lines, we just pull them apart while we move out, and they will just break on its own. Pretty much that's how it works in the game. Waybills and interchanges. Okay, waybills tell you where your freight car needs to be delivered to. So basically that's how we set the waybill. We select a car, we select equipment. No, we select operations, which is waybill. We load it to East Wheater coal loader, and we empty it to East Wheater interchange to carry enough fuel. Okay. So now that we selected the destinations for this car and its designation, it's now showing East Wheater interchange to Carolina fuel and co. Basically, this car, because it's empty, it needs to be loaded. So in order to load it, we need to take it to that siding, and it actually highlights them when you hover over the car. But it highlights them only when you can see them. Or you can press on that little arrow on destination, and the camera will teleport you to it, and then you can highlight the entire track. So pretty much we need to put those in one of those two tracks. This siding is pretty much our storage. So now that we selected a destination for our coal car, let's change the switch, and we can slowly couple to this wagon. And now we can take this wagon to the interchange, so that next morning it will be loaded. Okay, so this car is now moved where it should be, so we will apply the handbrake. We will close the angle cocks, both of them. There we go. We will release the coupler. And now we need to pick up this empty passenger car. There we go. We have connected. And let's go to Wheater Station. It is just up ahead, so we will select forward. And off we go. Our little train is now completed. We should soon be arriving at Ila. And that's Ila station. There we go. Almost perfect stop. And the passengers are now unloading. Beautiful. We just got paid $18 for the passengers that we delivered. And we picked up 15 passengers for the return trip. So, from now, there are two ways to do things. You can pull forward, run around the wagon, and connect to it from the other end. Or you can just put on the reverser, set the train in reverse, release the brakes, and just do a sensible thing and push the train back to Whittier station. Which is exactly what I'm gonna do, just to save myself that extra 10 minutes to do shunting maneuvers. So the game obviously will tell us about speed limits, and in general most of the main line is good for 35 miles an hour, except where noted by yellow speed signs, which we passed in here, for example. So this is 30 miles an hour speed limit on that curve. And we are way below that. There we go. Perfect. I have to admit that the speed limit signs are, well, they don't really give you much of a headroom. So if you are going past them at too great speed, you most likely won't be able to slow down in time. But as long as you remember the rule of thumb, you should be fine for most of the time. So on the main line, which we are on right now, the speed limit is about 35 miles an hour. Mainline siding switches are good for 25 miles an hour or better. So yeah, pretty much, or lower. And yard, industrial and branch switches should be treated as 15 miles an hour. So basically, if you stick to those speed limits, for most part, you should be alright. And hopefully you won't derail too often. Right, let's go. Ila passenger stop. Okay, fair passenger fares. Yeah, so basically passenger runs won't make you huge money. It's about $1 per passenger. So yeah, you can imagine that there's a lot of passengers to transport, and each car can carry up to 60. So you can't make more than $60 from each run of full passenger car, and obviously you rarely will see full passenger car. Right, and there are contracts and compulsory. So there are some services that you need to run each and every day, and you need to supply certain industries. I haven't done that yet, but from the description it seems like every single day the game will serve you some freight cars that you need to deliver to specific locations in order to basically service the industries that you need to service. There are, however, additional contracts that you can take, and you can decide whether you want to take them or not. If you take them and complete them, you will be able to get higher rewards and better contracts in the future. So basically, completing low-level contracts will unlock higher-level contracts in the future. Some of the contracts that you will take also will allow you or enable some sort of a progression. For example, there is that destroyed or damaged bridge behind Ila station, and there are several contracts that we need to take in order to fix that. We need to order specific materials, bring them to specific track, leave them there for a while, and allow the crews to actually repair the bridge. When the bridge is repaired, we will unlock the access to another stretch of tracks, and there are several other bridges that we need to fix along the way. So there is that sense of progression that I actually like that system. To be honest, I really enjoy that. That developers put some effort into making this railway progressive, and you have to adjust your experience by either taking or not taking specific contracts, etc, etc. So there is a lot of in-depth when it comes to gameplay, and that's what I like about this game. It's not the level of simulation, which, let's say, yeah, to say the least, the level of simulation is very lacking. It's not great attention to details when it comes to models, because again, that is also lacking, and the models are just, well, they look like placeholders, or like they could use some more work to make them a bit more detailed. But it's the gameplay that makes this game such a great experience, and I really enjoy it. I have to admit that I really enjoy playing Railroaders so far, because while we literally have 3 rail cars, 1 working locomotive, 1 broken locomotive, and at the beginning it is 1.5 hours worth of gameplay so far, and that's just the tutorial. There we go, we just got paid. So now, first contract. Obviously the game will guide us how to take the contracts. However, before we take first contracts, let's get this wagon back where it belongs. So reverse it to reverse. Let's release the brakes. And let's return this wagon back to its original siding. Because I don't want to keep things on the main line. I'm not quite sure what this siding is for, but I think it's one of the compulsory supplies that you need to bring. And there are not too many storage tracks, like pure storage tracks, on the main line. Because we need to access, we need an access to this track, and we need an access to this track. There we go. So the passenger car is back on the siding where it originally came from. Let's hang on. We need to gain access to this angle cock. There we go. And we need an access to this angle cock. There we go. We can disconnect the coupler. Oh, that is a weird bug. Okay. Perfect. Now that the engine is disconnected, we can release the brakes. There we go. Let's park our locomotive back in the shed. There we go. That's much better. Okay, we can apply full brakes. We can apply handbrake. Okay, perfect. Change the camera. We can leave the engine for now. Right, everyone. So that was the tutorial for Railroader. We haven't discovered everything yet. So I left the contract taking or the contracts for the next episode. And yes, there will be another episode. When? I don't know. I'll try to record it as soon as possible because, yeah, the game is really hot and it's really, really nice. As I said before, I'm really having a blast playing it. And despite this game not quite being a simulator and not quite being a management game, it is something in between. And I like the concept. I like the fact that the game will keep you busy. It clearly will. There is a lot of things to discover. There's a lot of things to do. And as the game progresses, I have a feeling it will become more and more and more challenging and engaging. Right now, obviously due to lack of rolling stock and equipment, this main line will feel rather empty, but in the future, it's gonna grow to something great. And I think, yeah, I think that's fantastic. I really look forward to discover what else this game has to offer. Anyway, everyone, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, join my Discord server, link is in description down below the video. And if you want to buy Railroader, you can find it on Steam for about 25 US dollars or about 30 US dollars, 25 British pound sterling, or any other currency equivalent that you will use. So check it out and yeah, just pick it up. It's really nice game. It's great game. It's Admiral's approved. Admiral's approved. Right. See you next time. Bye bye.